Well, hello there, dearies. Let me tell you a story. My name's Agnes, and I'm 82 years young, if I do say so myself. Now, I've always prided myself on my sharp wit and even sharper memory, qualities my son, Mark, seems to think are fading. It all started at my granddaughter Lily's graduation party. A lovely affair, really, except for one particularly irritating element. You see, Mark, bless his heart, he's always been a bit condescending. He's got that air about him, you know? The kind that makes you want to reach for your spectacles, even if your eyesight's perfectly fine. It began subtly, these little digs masked as concern. "Mother, are you sure you can manage that heavy trifle?" he'd asked, his voice dripping with what he probably thought was solicitous care. Then came the thinly veiled comments about my vintage handbag and the charmingly old-fashioned way I address my emails. He even dared to suggest I might need help cutting my cake, a perfectly manageable slice of Victoria sponge, I might add. I could feel the familiar simmering start in my belly. This wasn't just a minor annoyance, it was a blatant disregard for my capabilities. It was a challenge, really, and I, Agnes Periwinkle, wasn't about to back down. Oh no, not this time. This was going to be interesting. This was going to be more than just a family gathering. It was the start of a carefully orchestrated, deliciously sweet revenge. And let me tell you, the best revenge is always served cold, and perhaps with a little extra cream. You see, dear listeners, this was only the beginning. This was just the prelude to my symphony of subtle, yet utterly satisfying, comeuppance. Now, Mark's barbs weren't blunt. They were the kind that sting more because they're disguised as concern. It started with little things. He'd ask me twice, sometimes thrice, about things I'd just told him, feigning worry about my memory. "Mother, are you sure you took your medication?" he'd inquire, his tone a peculiar mix of solicitude and skepticism. Honestly, I felt like I was being examined by a particularly nosy doctor, rather than enjoying a family celebration. Then came the comments about my pace. "Taking your time, Mother," he'd remark, his voice laced with a subtle impatience as I carefully maneuvered myself down the stairs. Or, when we were walking to the garden for the post-dinner drinks, he'd offer his arm with a theatrical flourish, as if I were about to collapse at any moment. Each comment, individually insignificant perhaps, yet together they chipped away at my self-esteem, building a frustrating wall of patronizing concern. It was a slow drip, drip, drip of condescension, each drop wearing away at my patience. He'd even help me with tasks I was perfectly capable of managing myself, like unwrapping a napkin or pouring a glass of water. These gestures, intended to be helpful, felt like tiny, humiliating slaps in the face. The cumulative effect was a simmering resentment, a quiet fury building within me, fueling my plan for a perfectly executed counterattack. But I played it cool, you see. I let him believe he was winning, while I was carefully crafting my masterpiece of subtle revenge. He had no idea what was coming. Oh, he had no idea at all. Initially, a wave of hurt washed over me. It wasn't the sharp sting of a direct insult, but a dull ache of disappointment. My own son, the boy I'd nurtured and loved, was treating me like a fragile porcelain doll, constantly in danger of shattering. The frustration bubbled up next, a bitter taste in my mouth. It wasn't just the inconvenience of his help, it was the underlying disrespect, the implication that my age somehow diminished my capabilities. I felt a familiar tightness in my chest, the kind that comes with years of holding back, of swallowing down emotions for the sake of family harmony. But then, something shifted. A tiny spark of defiance ignited within me, a flicker of the old fire that had always burned brightly beneath my calm exterior. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was more like a focused determination. A quiet resolve hardened my gaze. I wouldn't let him win. I wouldn't allow his patronizing behavior to define me. This wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about reclaiming my dignity, about reminding him, and perhaps myself, that age doesn't equate to incompetence. The hurt remained, a dull throb beneath the surface, but it was now overshadowed by a potent cocktail of resolve and cunning. I started to smile, a slow, deliberate curve of my lips. The game was afoot, and I, my dear listeners, was about to play it masterfully. The seeds of my revenge were already sown, and they were growing beautifully. What stung most wasn't just the comments themselves, but the audience. It wasn't a private conversation. It was a public performance of my perceived inadequacy. My son, in his misguided attempt at demonstrating concern, was actually humiliating me in front of family and friends. There was Aunt Millie, her eyes wide with a mixture of pity and amusement, and Cousin Beatrice, her lips pursed in what I could only interpret as a judgmental frown. Even my usually supportive sister, Eleanor, seemed slightly embarrassed, glancing away as Mark offered his arm with exaggerated care. The vulnerability was sharp, a sudden, unexpected ache. It wasn't the physical vulnerability of old age, but the emotional nakedness of being belittled in public. It was the feeling of being reduced to a caricature, a frail old woman needing constant assistance, a role I refused to play. The weight of their gazes felt heavy, as if I were carrying the burden of their unspoken assumptions. Each subtle glance, each whispered comment, served to amplify my son's patronizing behavior, creating a suffocating atmosphere of unwarranted pity. The sharp sting of embarrassment mixed with the simmering anger, fueling my determination to turn the tables. This wasn't just about correcting Mark's behavior. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my self-respect, in front of everyone who had witnessed his condescending performance. I needed to show them, and most importantly, myself, that I was far from the helpless old woman he portrayed. It happened during the cutting of the cake. Mark, naturally, offered to cut my slice, his hand hovering over the knife like a surgeon preparing for delicate surgery. The air crackled with unspoken tension. I could feel the weight of everyone's expectations, the unspoken assumption that I was incapable. And that's when it hit me, a wave of pure, unadulterated defiance. Enough was enough. This wasn't about a slice of Victoria sponge. It was about control, about dignity, about reclaiming my autonomy. A slow smile spread across my face, a smile that held no trace of the hurt or frustration I'd felt moments before. It was a smile of quiet determination, a smile that promised action. The change was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. My shoulders straightened, my back stiffened, and a newfound strength filled my posture. The lines around my eyes deepened, not with worry or sadness, but with a mischievous glint that betrayed my inner strategy. I placed a hand on his arm, stopping him mid-gesture. My touch was firm, my voice steady, devoid of the tremor he seemed to expect. This wasn't just a rebellion against Mark, it was a reclamation of my identity. I was more than the sum of his patronizing gestures, more than the fragile image he'd projected. I was Agnes Periwinkle, and I was far from finished. The spark had ignited, and it was burning with a fierce, quiet intensity, ready to be carefully channeled into a plan that would leave my son both surprised and thoroughly humbled. The game, I decided, was on, and I was going to win. My plan wasn't about revenge, not in the traditional sense. It wasn't about inflicting pain or causing him discomfort. It was about a quiet, subtle reclamation of my dignity. I wanted to show Mark, and everyone else, that his assumptions were wrong, that my age didn't diminish my capabilities. I needed a strategy that would be both effective and elegant, a carefully orchestrated demonstration of my competence, disguised as something entirely innocuous. Over a cup of tea later that evening, the idea struck me. It was deceptively simple, yet perfectly suited to my purpose. It revolved around the annual village fete, a cherished tradition I'd always enthusiastically participated in. This year, however, I'd strategically decided to withdraw. Mark, of course, had volunteered me for the cake stall, assuming I'd need his assistance. His offer was yet another opportunity for him to subtly assert his supposed dominance. But that was exactly what I intended to use to my advantage. I would not only participate, I would excel. I would bake the most spectacular cakes, cakes so extraordinary they would silence every doubt, every condescending glance. Not only would I bake them, but I would also manage the entire stall, single-handedly, proving myself more capable than he could ever imagine. It would be a silent yet resounding victory, a sweet, delicious triumph. My strategy needed to be multi-pronged, a carefully constructed symphony of subtle actions designed to achieve maximum impact. Mark, bless his cotton socks, had a predictable pattern. He thrived on control, on being the one in charge. He also possessed a rather inflated sense of his own organizational skills, a trait I intended to exploit. First, I'd subtly let him believe he was in charge of the cake stall preparations. He'd happily take on the task of ordering supplies, completely unaware that I'd already placed my own, far more extensive order directly with the bakery. Then came the baking. My secret weapon was my legendary lemon drizzle cake, a recipe passed down through generations, a cake so exquisite it could make angels weep. I'd bake a batch far exceeding the anticipated demand, ensuring a constant supply of deliciousness throughout the fete. He'd assume he was overseeing the operation, oblivious to the fact that the entire enterprise would run smoothly even without his involvement. His organizational skills would be effectively redundant, a fact I knew he wouldn't notice amidst the apparent success of the stall. Furthermore, the sheer volume of cakes would serve as a silent testament to my capabilities, a visual demonstration of my efficiency and planning. The final piece of the puzzle was the presentation. I'd ensure the stall was a picture of perfection, impeccably organized, a showcase of my meticulous nature. Each cake, a perfect jewel in a crown of culinary excellence. The triumph wouldn't be merely about the cakes themselves, but about the flawless execution of the entire operation, a silent, yet powerful, message to my son. The first move had to be subtle, almost imperceptible. A casual conversation, a seemingly innocent suggestion. I found Mark meticulously reviewing the village fate's volunteer sign-up sheet, his brow furrowed in concentration. He looked like a general planning a military campaign, intensely focused and utterly convinced of his own indispensable role. This was my opening. "Oh, Mark, darling," I began, my voice laced with feigned helplessness. "I'm so terribly overwhelmed by all the preparations for the fete. I simply don't know where to begin with the cake stall. Perhaps you could handle the ordering of supplies? You're so much better organized than I am." The words hung in the air, a carefully crafted bait. I watched as his face lit up, a mixture of pride and self-importance shining in his eyes. He eagerly accepted the task, already envisioning himself as the mastermind behind the cake stall's success. Little did he know, his self-appointed role was nothing more than a carefully constructed stage for my grand performance. I'd already placed a discreet order with Mrs. Gable at the bakery, a far more substantial order than he'd ever dream of placing, guaranteeing a mountain of my delectable lemon drizzle cakes. The stage was set. The game was afoot. Next, I subtly guided Mark towards choosing the most inconvenient stall location. He, in his infinite wisdom, selected a spot far from the main thoroughfare, believing his organizational prowess would overcome this minor setback. In reality, this was perfect. It meant less foot traffic for him to manage, giving me more control. I then casually mentioned my intention to decorate the stall with my vintage china teacups, a task he deemed too delicate for my aging hands. He assumed the role of overseeing the logistics, completely unaware that my delicate task was a subtle distraction, allowing me to quietly set up the stall exactly as I wanted. The final piece of the puzzle was the pricing. Mark, ever the pragmatist, suggested a slightly higher price point than usual. I feigned agreement, secretly knowing that the sheer volume of cakes, coupled with their irresistible taste, would guarantee a sellout regardless of price. It was all coming together, a perfectly orchestrated symphony of seemingly innocuous actions, each designed to subtly shift the control of the situation back into my hands. The stage was set, the actors were in place, and the curtain was about to rise on my very own, very satisfying, little drama. The village fete was rapidly approaching, and I was ready. The day of the fete dawned bright and sunny, the perfect backdrop for my carefully orchestrated triumph. I arrived early, ostensibly to help Mark with the final preparations. In reality, I was there to subtly ensure everything was exactly as I planned. I accidentally bumped into the table, causing a slight rearrangement of the supplies, a strategic move that placed the most eye-catching cakes precisely where I wanted them. I subtly redirected Mark's attention towards the less important tasks, allowing me to discreetly adjust the display, creating a visually stunning arrangement that highlighted my baking prowess. He fussed over the price tags, adjusting them with the air of a seasoned merchant. I watched, a small smile playing on my lips, as he unknowingly solidified my victory. His efforts were entirely superfluous. The cakes, magnificent as they were, would have sold out regardless of his pricing strategy. My patience was rewarded. Each seemingly insignificant action, each subtle maneuver, was a carefully placed piece in my intricate plan. It wasn't about deception, not exactly. It was about guiding him, gently nudging him in the direction of his own self-defeat, allowing him to believe he was orchestrating the success while I quietly orchestrated the whole performance. The stage was set, the audience was gathering, and the show was about to begin. The air crackled with anticipation. The first few customers arrived, their eyes widening at the sight of the magnificent cakes. Mark, puffing out his chest, began his performance, explaining the pricing strategy with an air of self-importance. I watched him, a silent observer, as he interacted with the customers, basking in the glow of what he believed to be his own success. The delicious aroma of lemon and sugar hung heavy in the air, a sweet perfume masking the tension building within me. Each cake sold was another nail in the coffin of his inflated ego. The queue grew longer, snaking its way across the fete grounds. Mark, convinced of his managerial genius, was completely oblivious to the fact that it was my cakes, my baking skills, and my subtle manipulations that were the true drivers of this success. His self-congratulatory pronouncements were almost unbearable, a symphony of self-praise that grated on my nerves, even as I reveled in the delicious irony of it all. The climax was approaching. The moment of truth was near. The sweet taste of victory was within my grasp, and the satisfaction of a perfectly executed plan was almost intoxicating. The tension was palpable, a delicious blend of anticipation and revenge simmering beneath the surface of the seemingly innocuous village fete. Then, it happened. As the last cake disappeared, a stunned silence fell over Mark. He looked around, his eyes wide with dawning realization. The smug smile faded, replaced by a look of bewildered confusion. He glanced at the empty table, then at me, his eyes finally registering the truth. The meticulously planned display, the perfectly executed pricing strategy, the strategic placement of the cakes, it all pointed to one undeniable fact. He'd been completely and utterly outmaneuvered. His carefully constructed facade of competence crumbled. His jaw dropped, his carefully cultivated air of self-importance dissolving into a mixture of shame and disbelief. He stammered, his words failing him as the weight of his delusion crashed down upon him. I could practically see the cogs turning in his head, the realization dawning that his supposed success was nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion. The silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the faint murmur of the other fete-goers and the sound of my quiet, almost imperceptible chuckle. The look on his face was priceless, a mixture of stunned disbelief and dawning comprehension. It was, without a doubt, the sweetest victory I'd ever tasted. The moment hung suspended in time, a testament to my cunning and his utter lack of awareness. His initial reaction was pure, unadulterated shock. His mouth hung open, a silent O of disbelief. His eyes darted around, searching for an explanation, a scapegoat, anything to dispel the horrifying truth that was slowly dawning on him. He looked at the empty cake stand, then back at me, his face a mask of confusion. His shoulders slumped, the air of self-importance deflating like a punctured balloon. It was a remarkable transformation, a sudden shift from arrogant confidence to bewildered uncertainty. His body language spoke volumes. His hands, which moments before had been gesturing with the authority of a seasoned entrepreneur, now hung limp at his sides. His usually erect posture sagged, his shoulders rounding as if bearing the weight of a world of disappointment. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His eyes, usually sparkling with self-satisfaction, now held a dull, vacant stare. For a moment, he simply stood there, frozen in a tableau of utter disbelief, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. The silence stretched, emphasizing the stark contrast between his previous boisterousness and his current state of stunned silence. It was a silent confession, a physical manifestation of his utter defeat. Then, a slow smile spread across his face, a mixture of grudging admiration and dawning understanding. He began to see the intricate web I had woven, the subtle manipulations, the perfectly timed diversions. He saw the brilliance of my strategy, the elegance of my execution. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, revealing the full scope of my plan. It wasn't just about the cakes. It was about reclaiming my dignity, proving my competence, and reminding him that he wasn't the only intelligent person in the family. His initial shock gave way to a grudging respect, a recognition of my superior intellect and strategic prowess. He saw the subtle ways I'd guided him, manipulated him, even into creating the very success I had orchestrated. He understood that my actions weren't malicious, but a carefully calculated response to his patronizing behavior. He saw the quiet strength beneath my seemingly docile exterior, the intelligence that had outmaneuvered him at every turn. The realization dawned slowly, but surely, painting a picture of a woman far more astute and capable than he had ever given her credit for. He finally understood. He'd been outsmarted, and by his own mother, no less. And in that understanding, a new respect began to blossom. The apology wasn't a mumbled, insincere utterance. It was heartfelt, genuine, and deeply affecting. He didn't just say the words, he meant them. He spoke of his arrogance, his presumption, his failure to recognize my capabilities. He acknowledged his patronizing behavior, admitting his misguided attempts to help had actually been deeply hurtful. There was no defensiveness, no attempt to justify his actions. It was a complete and utter acceptance of his mistakes. He spoke of his newfound respect for my intelligence, my resourcefulness, and my quiet strength. He admitted he'd underestimated me, profoundly misjudged my capabilities, and taken for granted my wisdom. His voice was filled with genuine remorse, a sincere acknowledgement of his failings. It wasn't just an apology, it was a transformation. The condescending, overbearing son I'd known was gone, replaced by a man who finally saw me, truly saw me, for the intelligent, capable, and fiercely independent woman I am. He didn't just apologize, he changed. And that, perhaps, was the sweetest part of my revenge. The shift in his attitude was palpable, a profound change that resonated far beyond the simple words he spoke. It was a testament to the power of a well-executed plan, and a reminder that sometimes the best revenge is a quiet, well-deserved victory. It wasn't a feeling of malicious triumph, not at all. It was something far more profound, a quiet satisfaction that settled deep within my soul. It wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about proving myself right. It was about reclaiming a sense of self-worth that had been subtly eroded by his patronizing behavior. The victory wasn't about humiliation, it was about restoration. The feeling was less about anger and more about a gentle, quiet sense of peace. The weight of his condescension, the subtle stings of his well-meaning but ultimately hurtful actions, lifted from my shoulders. I felt lighter, freer, more myself than I had in a long time. It wasn't the cakes that mattered. It was the quiet confidence that bloomed within me, the knowledge that I was capable, intelligent, and more than capable of handling my own affairs. His apology wasn't just an admission of fault. It was a validation of my worth. The success of the cake stall wasn't just about the money or the praise. It was a symbol of my regained independence and self-respect. It was a quiet affirmation of my strength, a testament to my resilience. The quiet satisfaction I felt was a deep, abiding sense of self-worth, a feeling far more rewarding than any outward display of victory could ever be. And that, my friends, was truly the sweetest reward of all. This whole experience taught me a great deal, more than just how to bake a truly magnificent Victoria sponge. It revealed the subtle ways we can unintentionally hurt those we love, often under the guise of help or concern. Mark's actions, though born of good intentions, stemmed from a place of ingrained assumptions and a lack of true understanding. He underestimated my capabilities, not out of malice, but because of a preconceived notion of what an elderly woman is capable of. His apology wasn't just about his actions, it was about his realization of this unconscious bias. My perspective on our relationship shifted. While I'd felt a need to prove myself, the experience underscored a deeper need for open communication and a willingness to understand each other's perspectives. The incident forced us to confront unspoken assumptions and navigate our dynamic on a level of honest self-reflection. It wasn't just about the cake. It was about bridging a gap, a generational disconnect that had quietly built up over time. The incident became a catalyst for change, a turning point in our relationship that fostered a deeper understanding and respect. It taught me the importance of clear communication and the necessity of acknowledging unspoken assumptions, even within the closest of family bonds. The cake was delicious, but the true sweetness lay in the improved understanding and respect that blossomed in its wake. It reinforced the understanding that sometimes the most effective way to resolve conflict is not through confrontation, but through quiet, strategic action, coupled with a willingness to forgive and understand. Forgiveness wasn't a passive act. It was a conscious choice, a deliberate decision to let go of the resentment and embrace understanding. Mark's behavior, though irritating and patronizing, stemmed from a place of misplaced concern and a deep-seated, albeit unconscious, bias. He hadn't intended to hurt me. His actions were born from a desire to protect me, to shield me from perceived inadequacies. He saw my age not as a source of wisdom and experience, but as a marker of decline, a vulnerability that needed to be managed. His actions, however misguided, stemmed from a place of love, albeit a clumsy, ill-expressed love. Understanding his perspective didn't excuse his behavior, but it did provide context, a framework for interpreting his actions beyond the surface level of irritation and condescension. It allowed me to see the well-intentioned but ultimately hurtful nature of his actions. His apology wasn't just a verbal act. It was a testament to his growth, a recognition of his own shortcomings, and a commitment to change. The incident became a catalyst for genuine growth in our relationship. We learned to communicate more openly, to listen more attentively, and to approach each other with greater empathy and understanding. The cake was just a catalyst. The true reward was the strengthening of our bond, a bond forged not in resentment, but in mutual respect and a shared understanding of our vulnerabilities. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one built on a foundation of forgiveness, self-awareness, and a renewed appreciation for the complexities of family relationships. The change was gradual, subtle, yet undeniably present. The condescending tone vanished, replaced by a genuine respect that resonated in every interaction. Our conversations became richer, deeper, marked by a newfound openness and a willingness to truly listen. He no longer rushed to ask help, instead pausing to ask if I needed assistance, respecting my autonomy and capabilities. He actively sought my advice, valuing my opinions and experience, a stark contrast to the patronizing attitude that had previously characterized our interactions. Small gestures spoke volumes. He'd bring me tea in the afternoons, not as a chore, but as a thoughtful gesture. He'd call more often, not to check up on me, but to simply chat, to share stories and updates, to engage in genuine conversation. He started involving me in family decisions, seeking my input, valuing my perspective. He wasn't just treating me as his mother. He was treating me as an equal, a respected member of the family, a woman of wisdom and experience. The dynamic had shifted completely. Instead of a strained, unequal relationship fraught with subtle power struggles, we now shared a bond built on mutual respect, open communication, and a genuine appreciation for each other's strengths. It wasn't just a change in behavior. It was a transformation of our relationship, a testament to the power of forgiveness, understanding, and a well-baked victorious sponge cake. The cake itself was a mere footnote to the profound and lasting changes that followed. It was the beginning of a far sweeter chapter in our story. The most significant shift wasn't just in our interactions, it was in Mark's perception of me. The condescending undercurrent that had previously colored his attitude completely disappeared, replaced by a genuine respect for my intelligence and resilience. He finally saw beyond the stereotype of the frail, dependent elderly woman. He acknowledged my sharp mind, my strategic thinking, the quiet strength I possessed, a strength he hadn't recognized before. He began to actively solicit my advice, not just on baking, but on various aspects of his life, recognizing the value of my experience and wisdom. His newfound respect wasn't just a matter of politeness, it was a fundamental shift in his understanding of me. He saw my ability to plan, strategize, and execute a complex plan with finesse, a skill he hadn't previously attributed to me. He recognized my resourcefulness, my ability to adapt and overcome challenges, qualities he had underestimated for so long. It wasn't just about the successful cake stall, it was about the unveiling of a strength he hadn't known existed. He saw my resilience, my ability to not only withstand his unintentional slights, but to turn them into a quiet, satisfying victory. It wasn't just an acknowledgement of my capabilities. It was a recognition of my character, my quiet strength, and my enduring spirit. The respect he now held for me wasn't simply a byproduct of the cake stall's success. It was a testament to the strength of my character, a strength that had been there all along, quietly waiting to be recognized. This entire episode forced me to confront my own preconceived notions about aging. I'd subconsciously accepted the societal narrative that equates aging with decline, with a diminished capacity for independent thought and action. Mark's actions, though well-intentioned, mirrored those societal assumptions. His attempts to help were rooted in a belief that I was less capable than I actually was. The incident served as a stark reminder that age is just a number, a chronological marker that doesn't define one's capabilities or intelligence. My success at the cake stall wasn't simply a victory over Mark, it was a victory over my own internalized ageism. The experience challenged my own self-perception. I realized that I had allowed societal expectations to influence my own self-assessment. I had begun to accept the limitations others imposed on me. The incident was a wake-up call, a powerful reminder of my own resilience, my resourcefulness, and my capacity for strategic thinking. It showed me that I was far more capable than I had given myself credit for. It wasn't just about proving Mark wrong, it was about proving myself right, about reclaiming my sense of self-worth and acknowledging my own capabilities. This experience transcended a simple family conflict. It was a profound personal journey of self-discovery. It reaffirmed my belief in my own abilities and challenged the limiting beliefs I had inadvertently adopted about aging. It was a powerful reminder that age is not a barrier to achievement, but rather a testament to experience and wisdom. The cake was delicious, but the true sweetness lay in the rediscovery of my own potential. The most profound outcome of this entire experience wasn't just the improved relationship with Mark. It was the unshakable confidence I gained in myself. I discovered a strength I didn't know I possessed, a quiet resilience that allowed me to not only withstand Mark's patronizing behavior, but to cleverly outmaneuver him. The cake stall wasn't just a successful baking venture, it was a powerful demonstration of my ability to stand up for myself, to assert my independence, and to prove my capabilities, regardless of my age. The quiet satisfaction I felt wasn't born of malice or spite, but from a deep sense of self-worth and empowerment. This newfound confidence extended beyond my interactions with Mark. I found myself more assertive in other areas of my life, more willing to speak my mind, and more confident in my decisions. I no longer hesitated to express my opinions or to advocate for my needs. I embraced my age not as a symbol of decline, but as a testament to experience and wisdom. The lines on my face, once a source of self-doubt, now reflected a life well lived, a life filled with resilience, resourcefulness, and a quiet determination to never let anyone underestimate my capabilities again. The cake stall was a symbol of my triumph, but the real victory was the unshakable confidence I gained in myself, a confidence that permeates every aspect of my life. This newfound strength, this inner resilience, is a far more valuable reward than any perfectly baked cake. It's a strength I carry with me, a quiet power that whispers, "I am capable, I am strong, and I will never again underestimate myself." Looking back, I realize the power of my subtle approach. A direct confrontation would have likely resulted in a defensive reaction from Mark Dyke, escalating the conflict rather than resolving it. My method, however, allowed him to arrive at his own conclusions, to see his own shortcomings without feeling directly attacked. It was a far more effective, and ultimately more satisfying, way to address the issue. The subtle manipulation, the quiet orchestration of events, allowed me to demonstrate my capabilities without resorting to anger or open conflict. It was a strategy born not of malice, but of a deep-seated desire for respect and recognition. The success of my plan hinged on my understanding of Mark's personality. His need for control, his desire to be seen as competent, were all factors I cleverly utilized to my advantage. By subtly guiding him, I allowed him to believe he was in charge, while simultaneously ensuring the success of the cake stall. This indirect approach allowed for a far more profound and lasting impact than any direct confrontation could have achieved. It fostered self-reflection in Mark, prompting him to acknowledge his own shortcomings and recognize my capabilities. The subtle nature of my actions allowed him to save face, to recognize his mistakes without feeling humiliated or defeated. This fostered a far more positive and lasting change in our relationship than any direct confrontation could have ever achieved. The power of subtlety lies in its ability to create lasting change without causing unnecessary conflict or resentment. It's a strategy I'd recommend to anyone seeking a peaceful resolution to a difficult situation. It's a lesson learned in the sweetest, most delicious way imaginable. The incident at the village fete proved to be a turning point in our relationship. The condescending undercurrent that had previously characterized our interactions completely vanished. Mark's apology wasn't just a formality, it was a genuine expression of remorse and a recognition of his past mistakes. He acknowledged his unconscious bias, his tendency to underestimate my capabilities, and the harm his actions had caused. This wasn't just about the cake, it was about a deeper understanding and a newfound respect. Our relationship is now built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine connection. He actively seeks my advice, valuing my experience and wisdom. Our conversations are richer, more meaningful, and devoid of the patronizing undertones that once characterized them. He sees me not as a frail, dependent, elderly woman, but as a strong, intelligent, and resourceful individual. The shared laughter we now enjoy is far sweeter than any cake. The change isn't just in his behavior, it's in the very dynamic of our relationship. It's a testament to the power of communication, forgiveness, and the unexpected lessons life can teach us, often in the most delicious and surprising ways. The cake may be gone, but the sweetness of our renewed bond remains, a constant reminder of the unexpected transformation that unfolded that sunny afternoon at the village fete. The lasting impact is a relationship strengthened by understanding, respect, and a shared appreciation for the power of a well-baked cake. This entire experience taught me a valuable lesson about resilience. It's not about avoiding challenges, but about facing them with grace, intelligence, and a healthy dose of self-respect. Age, I've learned, is not a barrier to achieving our goals or asserting our independence. It's a testament to the wisdom and experience we've accumulated over the years. Our capacity for strategic thinking, for creativity, and for resilience doesn't diminish with age. It often strengthens. The key is to embrace our own capabilities, to never underestimate our potential, and to never allow others to define our limitations. The most important lesson, however, is the value of self-respect. It's about knowing your worth, recognizing your capabilities, and having the confidence to stand up for yourself, regardless of the circumstances. It's about understanding that your voice matters, your opinions are valid, and your contributions are valuable. Don't let anyone diminish your self-worth, especially not those closest to you. This isn't about winning a battle. It's about cultivating a life filled with self-respect, a life where you value your own capabilities and where you're unafraid to assert your independence and your worth. And remember, sometimes a little bit of strategic baking can go a long way in achieving those goals. So, cherish your own wisdom, your own strength, and never, ever underestimate the power of a perfectly baked cake or the power of a well-orchestrated plan. The sweetness of self-respect is far more enduring than any fleeting victory. It wasn't brute force or shouting that won the day. It was wit, strategy, and a keen understanding of human nature. My plan wasn't born of anger, but of a quiet determination to demonstrate my capabilities. I used Mark's own desire for control against him, subtly guiding him towards the outcome I desired. It was a chess game, a carefully orchestrated dance where every move was calculated, every action designed to achieve a specific result. My intelligence, often underestimated, became my greatest weapon. I leveraged my knowledge of his personality, his strengths and weaknesses, to create a situation where he inadvertently paved the way for my own success. The satisfaction wasn't in his failure, but in the elegance of the plan itself. It was a testament to the power of intellect, a demonstration that a sharp mind can navigate even the most challenging of situations. I didn't need to resort to confrontation. I used my wit to create a situation where the truth revealed itself, where his own actions exposed his shortcomings. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who sought to control every aspect of the cake stall ended up being completely outmaneuvered by the very person he sought to control. It was a victory not of force, but of finesse, a triumph of intellect over arrogance. It highlighted the quiet power of a sharp mind, the ability to see beyond the surface, to anticipate reactions, and to orchestrate events with precision and grace. This wasn't just about baking. It was about the strategic deployment of intelligence, a testament to the power of a well-honed mind. The cake stall was merely the stage for a far more intricate performance, a display of strategic brilliance. So, there you have it. My little tale of triumph over a rather large slice of humble pie, or should I say cake. Looking back, I realized that this wasn't just about a successful cake stall. It was about reclaiming my self-worth, about challenging assumptions, and about proving that age is no barrier to intelligence, resourcefulness, or a healthy dose of playful revenge. If my story resonates with you, dear listener, if you too have faced similar challenges, let me offer a message of hope. Don't let age define you. Let your spirit, your intelligence, and your resilience guide you. We older folks have a wealth of experience, wisdom, and a quiet strength that often goes unnoticed. Don't let anyone diminish that. Embrace your capabilities, nurture your inner strength, and remember that even the most challenging situations can be navigated with grace, wit, and a perfectly baked cake, if necessary. Don't be afraid to assert yourself, to stand up for what you believe in, and to challenge those who underestimate you. Our lives are a tapestry of experiences, both sweet and challenging. Embrace the sweetness, learn from the challenges, and never, ever stop baking your own path to happiness. The world needs your wisdom, your experience, and your unique perspective. So, go forth, my friends, and bake a life filled with joy, resilience, and the delicious taste of your own hard-earned success. And remember, a little bit of subtle manipulation never hurt anyone. Well, maybe just a little.